This is Michael Spedden, and welcome to Fowl Players Radio, your one-stop shop for all of your pop culture needs. We feature interviews from musicians, actors, comics, dancers, authors, and much, much more, up-and-coming artists and beloved favorites. We've got it all, people on stage, backstage, out front, and behind the scenes. Sit back and relax. Let's have some fun.
Hi, this is Kathy Ladman, and you're listening to Fowl Players Radio, the place where you get all of your good news information. Not really, but it's just a great show.
Hi, I'm Emmy Jo.
And I'm Doug, and we're from the New Zoo Review, and you're watching Fowl Players Radio.
And welcome back to another episode of Fowl Players Radio. Michael Spedden here, and tonight's guest is Nancy St. Alban. Nancy and I kind of have a common bond because we both performed at Baltimore Actors Theatre at different times. She actually went to school there, and I was there kind of towards the tail end of things. But my wife has performed, obviously, with both of us there. So we had a lot to talk about tonight, memories of working at Baltimore Actors Theatre in the different times that we did. She also spent, a good number of years on The Guiding Light and a number of other television shows and movies. And I really had a great conversation with her. You really get a good inside look at what it's like to be a working actress, starting through arts school and going all the way through the professional levels and everything. And I really think you're going to enjoy this episode. She's a really great lady and very down to earth, very open about her experiences on The Guiding Light, as you'll see. So, folks, we'll be right back right after these words with Nancy St. Alban. Stick around.
Hey, Mary Jo Peel here, and you are listening to Fowl Players Radio.
Hey there, it's Mark Slaughter of the band Slaughter, and you're listening to Fowl Players Radio with Michael Spedden.
And welcome back to Fowl Players Radio. Michael Spedden here, and tonight's guest is Nancy St. Alban. It turns out we had kind of a degree of separation between us because we both came from Baltimore Actors Theatre at different times, and my wife had worked with her a lot in the past, and we had recently caught up with each other in Tarrytown, New York, I believe it was. We had lunch together on our way up to Woodstock, and my wife and Nancy and I sat down and reminisced about a lot of things that, especially that the two of you had worked through together. And you've had, a lot of exciting things that you've been involved in here. You've got a daughter doing some exciting things, which we can get to later if you like. So I'm going to shut up because this isn't my episode, it's yours. So Nancy, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Michael. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The fact that, we both kind of came from the same theater at different times, and, you had really done well, somebody coming out of that school, it's a very intense, environment.
Yes.
To say the least. And
to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My experiences were as an adult, when it came to acting, and I'll just kind of put this in perspective here. And I'll let you tell your experience here. I didn't get into acting until I was in my early 40s. I'd been a band guy for all these years. And I just happened to stumble upon, through somebody I knew, an opening in Jesus Christ Superstar at Baltimore Actors Theatre back in 2011. So my years at BAT were 2011 through roughly 2019. I think I did my last children's show there. And that's where I met my better half, my beautiful wife, celebrating 10 years of marriage coming up soon. And but you were there, a lot longer in a much different capacity. You were a student in the school and there for quite a few years. So tell us about what it was like for you at Baltimore Actors Theatre.
Yeah, I started there. My first show was Oklahoma.
Oh, okay.
It was back in the late 80s, and I was very young, so I was just in the ensemble. And at the time, I had been a dancer. I was a ballet dancer, and I really wanted to be a ballerina. And then I I auditioned for the show at BAT, and I got in the ensemble, and it was exciting. It was kind of like a cool little thing to be
Mhm.
part of this performance, and I got the bug then. So quickly segued into musical theater, and I was all in from that moment on. I think I went. That was in the summertime, and I think I started school there right away in the fall. I
Mhm.
went to school there from seventh grade through high school.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. So,
And
yeah,
it was an intense environment. It was kind of an environment where as a kid you were expected to behave like an adult. So I learned very quickly how to sort of put on my big girl pants and step up to the plate because the pressure was on. With as you know, it was a high pressured environment.
a very high pressure and very challenging academically, from what I understand, too. There were a lot of students there taking AP courses, and many of them that had spoken to in my years there, had a whole bunch of college credits by the time they were enrolled in college. They came
Yeah.
in with a whole bunch of, because of the AP classes and small groups, personalized attention, and you got to say highly intelligent people that taught there too.
Very much so. It was great training. We had our academics in the morning. We did
Hmm.
academics from 9 to 12. So it wasn't a lot of time,
Right.
but they had a great curriculum. I think they used, I forget what the curriculum was called for the Calvert School. That's what it was. Calvert School for up to
Hmm.
eighth grade. And
Sure.
then they did University of Nebraska curriculum. These were like home study courses that we used in the school, and we
Hmm.
had teachers who actually helped, facilitate it for us. So it was pretty rigorous because we only had that short amount of time for academics, and then the rest of the day until 4:30 was all, arts classes, which was like my dream. We would sing, dance, we had music history, music theory, we had drama history. It was a lot of great training. And then on the weekends we had the dinner theater. We had we could all audition for shows. It was adults in the show, so it wasn't like it was like a kids theater. We were
Right. Right.
if you were lucky, you got cast in these shows with all adults. And I mean, from the time I was in seventh grade, it was an incredible experience. And had I known as I moved on through my career that experience was really different than what most people had. I really didn't understand that, as a kid, that I was well prepared moving forward.
Yes, I saw a lot of, um, having been in the music business and having spent many years having record companies chew me up and spit me out. I had a taste of that, of
Yeah,
course, for many years. But then when I saw how it was with the kids, how, I mean, this was not only just a school. I mean, this was something with a lot more commitment to it, where, it was almost like an Olympic training type of thing.
absolutely. That's actually a great way of describing it because the amount of time that we spent, in school and then after school, sometimes till 11 and 12 at night when we had to
Mhm.
get up, and go to school the next day and still do homework. We were rehearsing and preparing for these performances. And we, had great audiences, especially back in that time. I think that was really popular then, and the theaters were full. It was a lot of responsibility, a lot of training.
It really was, and, yeah, I mean, the level of training, very intense. I mean, I was, they had invited me to visit the school a couple of times during the day, and just the level of classes, they had, I saw the chorus class, and they were all singing, all the different parts, and it sounded like a professional chorus almost. With, again, all four parts being done, and they all knew their parts. They could read the music and sing
Mhm.
it. I mean, it was really an intense program. And again, it did remind me a lot of like what like Olympic ice skaters go through, all that level of training, and it's just intense day after day after day. I've had friends of mine, and friends of mine who have had their children in swimming, and you're in the pool 5 a.m. every day, and you're in there until you go to school, and then you're in there after school. and a very intense life. After a while, some people that really love it end up sticking with it. Others, it gets to
Yeah.
the point where they're like, I want to be a teenager, and kind of
Yeah,
have that part
I
of their
feel like
life.
I gave up a little bit of my teenage years.
Hmm.
And it's actually very validating to hear you describe it like that because it really was like that.
Hmm.
The training was intense, the rehearsal processes were intense, the performances were
Hmm.
almost traumatizing sometimes because we really stepped up, when someone didn't show up or someone was sick, we were just thrown into it and we did it. We
Hmm.
did things that I probably didn't believe were possible, and I just stepped up and did it because they believed that we could do it, and
Yeah.
we had no choice. We were in
Hmm.
it. We were committed.
Right. Right. Some other things that I had noticed when I was there, when it came to the adults, of course, we had to watch the way, no dirty jokes amongst ourselves. No, we had to really be the example for these children, and I had seen like some other times when people would go to a play rehearsal, they roll in their sweatpants and a t-shirt. They wanted us dressed just like the kids, all black, neat,
Mhm.
dress shoes, black shirt, black pants. The women wore like I guess like a black shirt or a leotard or something like that, and everybody was uniform there. And they expected that kind of example, not to only come from them, but to come from us as, being the adults and the
Yeah.
ones there. Now I was pretty much brand new to acting, and I didn't, I mean, probably made so many dumb mistakes and said so many dumb things just to, you could ask my wife about that because she was kind of running that show, the first one I was in. But um,
Yeah, there
again,
was a level of discipline, though. There was a
it
level of
really was.
discipline and respect that was
Yes.
expected. And it was really infused in us as the kids, especially the ones who were in the school.
Hmm.
We were there. So that was something that we did take with us. That discipline actually really helped me in my career. And in, when I did work later on as a professional actor, it was, I think that experience really translated for me, that discipline.
Yes, I mean that again. That was really the main thing there, and again with the adults too, because I mean, I came late to the party to this. I wanted to see what it was like to be in a play. It's something I hadn't done since I guess like kindergarten or something, and that's a whole other story. But um, just seeing, how and I've been rejected from a lot of plays in high school, but I really got to see what goes into this here. I did learn a lot, I mean, as intense as it was there and everything. And, it, number of times I kind of bit my lip. Not, but, I did get a lot out of that. And that was really a good way to, for somebody coming in to really learn a lot in a short amount of time. I mean, they
Definitely.
were, very, very good for that. Um,
Definitely.
Now, so you were there. You performed at the Oregon Ridge building, the dinner theater.
I did the outdoor
Um,
theater and the dinner theater.
oh,
Mhm.
outdoors, yes.
Both. In fact, I was in the very first cast of Jesus Christ Superstar that they ever did.
Oh, is that right? Is
Yeah.
that right? Was that the one that they did? Did they do it in the amphitheater outside?
Outside, and yeah, and they did the crucifixion up on the hill. It was pretty intense. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I think I'd heard about that. And they use real donkeys and stuff?
Yeah, it was it was pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I heard about that production. Again, that was before my time.
Yeah.
And then was there also you did Babes in Toyland?
I did.
Duh. I'm sure you
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, I did it. I mean, so many times. I did Babes. We did it at the Lyric Opera House back when I
Hmm.
was there, which was also an extraordinary experience. I mean, that
Right.
theater is amazing.
Hmm.
And I did, I probably did it, I want to say 6 times, maybe,
Hmm.
maybe more. And I also did the trips to Florida. We used to go to Florida in January and August for the month. So that's why they did that home study courses at the school so that the kids
Sure.
could perform and go to Florida. And then we did our work by the swimming pool, which was great. And we had someone proctor us, and then we would perform every night at different theaters in Florida. It was really cool. That was probably the most, that was probably some of the best experiences for me because you grew up. I didn't have my parents there, and I had to kind of really take care of myself. And I was young. I think the first time I went, I was probably in eighth or ninth grade. Um,
Sure.
yeah. And then we performed at all these giant theaters. They were like, New York City, like Broadway sized theaters that were all around in the Century Villages in Florida. And even though it was a bunch of old people, they were they were used to, Broadway quality shows. They all moved from New York to Florida. And so we had to kind of put on a great show. So that was a great experience as well.
I remember Teresa talking about going to Florida and performing
Yeah.
down there. Now, was this Phantom of the Opera that you were doing down there?
I don't think I ever did Phantom down there.
Okay.
I don't think so. We did we did Sound of Music there. We did Oliver there. We did South
Okay.
Pacific. We did like her Viva Broadway review we did there.
I'd heard of those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
And Teresa and I, did Gigi together. I was Gigi and she played my aunt. We were like the two starring roles in Gigi together, which was fun.
Oh, is that right? Okay. I think she did tell me about that. She did tell me about that. There was, she told me about that because you were in a commercial a couple of years ago that we saw a bunch of times, and she'd always point you out. Every time it was on, oh, that's Nancy. That's Nancy. We were in Gigi together.
We did.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the going down to Florida, that wasn't because I know that they took Phantom out on the road. Now, was that after your time? Had you moved on to college?
I was in Phantom the very first time they did that as well.
Okay.
And where did we do it the first time though? Was it at we did it in England and Scotland, but I feel like we did it first somewhere else. I guess I don't remember. It's that terrible. But we did that. My memory of doing it was England and Scotland, which was an incredible experience. And I was playing Meg Giry, who was the prima ballerina.
Yeah.
So we had all of these, and in fact, when I was teaching drama classes, I used to tell this to the kids that I would teach to, because we would talk about what a raked stage was. And and they didn't know what it was. And I was like, well, these stages, were all on an incline. And the theaters where we performed in England, they were still raked stages. So I would have to do turns on point shoe.
Oh, wow.
On these, and it's so hard to do when this sloped stage.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah. So that was kind of a fun memory, but we had a great time. Another way to really grow up, is going away to Europe, performing, with BAT, who expected a lot from their young people. So I did feel like I grew up pretty fast.
You had to there. You absolutely had to there. Now during your time there, I had heard too that a number of students had been brought over from England and performed at BAT as well. Was that during your time there, or was that maybe after?
I feel like I heard that story, and I feel like that might have been after.
Okay.
Yeah. So I remember doing right. I don't remember when it was. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I'm guessing that must have been after then. I guess sometime between, maybe sometime in the 90s.
Yeah.
Perhaps. But I know that they did. I remember Teresa telling me that they did Phantom. I think it was like every weekend for like 6 years in a row or something for a time.
Yeah, that was right after I left. They did it a lot. There's a lot of
Wow. I did that show a couple of times too.
Yes.
At least 2 runs of it. First, I was just ensemble. Second time, I played one of the managers.
Yeah.
And that was a fun show to do. It was a very fun show.
Yeah.
Now, the only problem was that some people came expecting the Michael Crawford Phantom of the Opera and not the BAT version.
And when I did it, they were working out, they had just written it. So they were working out the kinks. So we were like the guinea pigs for this show. So we were, they would adjust the lines, and the music changed, songs changed. So it was really I feel like I was there at a really good time. So I was able to do a lot of things that they were doing that were new for them. And then I think it kind of got repeated afterwards, which is great, but it was kind of fun for me to be part of something that was new.
Right. Well, that's, and did you ever do any of the children's shows too, the Wixie Theater?
Oh, yes. A lot. I did. Yes. yes, red shoes. I had to do dye my point shoes red and dancing around like crazy in red shoes. And gosh, I did so many of them. I can't even think. And we used to go around to schools and do the creative face. I think she calls it something else, but we would go to like the inner city schools and
Mhm.
we would just come like this. And then we would start to tell the story. I like of Pinocchio, for example.
Mhm.
Of Pinocchio once. And then you would, in front of them, sort of start to put makeup on as you're telling the story to the kids and show them how a character comes to life and then sing a few of the songs. And that was a great, really cool experience as well.
Mhm.
Really neat. Yeah.
That was something that I really enjoyed, is performing for the children because now that sounds weird, but it's not meant to be weird. I meant
No, yeah,
doing a
yeah.
play for children. Okay. Not no funny stuff here. Okay.
We used
I
to
am
do them
allowed
at
within 500 feet of schools, by the way. So um,
we used to do them at the Baltimore Museum of Art. There was a stage there, and we
oh
did
yeah.
the children's theater there.
That was, that's a nice venue to do it. And I've been there a bunch of times. The ones that we did, I think it was Heidi,
Did Heidi.
Thumbelina.
I did that.
I think we did Cinderella.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I did
Heidi,
that too.
Cinderella, and then there was also, I think, Sleeping Beauty.
Hmm.
So, and Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah.
Little Red Riding Hood. We did those, and also too with Babes, because the first year I did Babes, I was Santa.
Hmm.
I came out with behind the big giant. They had the big stocking that they would roll out, and I had to walk out behind it and then come out. It's Santa, and all the
Yeah.
So, um, I remember after that I had to go to the lobby, and I had to actually be Santa Claus, and all the kids would come up to me and give me their Christmas lists and everything. And
Oh my gosh.
but the thing is that if you've ever performed, and these kids, they buy it hook, line, and sinker. They're
Yeah.
looking at you and they want to come up and they want to touch your hand, and they're just like, wow.
Yeah.
And especially when you're Santa Claus, they were trying to figure me out. And they were just like looking at me like, I don't know. I don't know. And
Aw.
sometimes their parents would tell me their name before they got up. So it's like, oh, hi, Tommy. And and how did you know I was Tommy? And I said, I have my ways of knowing. And I just spoke to your teacher last week. And they'd be like, ah! And I'd be like, and she gave me a good report on you. And they're like,
Aw. That's sweet though.
but
Oh,
they love it. These kids, they're very, very into it. They believe it. They want to come up and touch your hand, and they always want hugs and things like that. And
and
it's
sometimes it's their first exposure to
it
theater,
is.
which is great.
Mhm. And it's good for those kids to have that experience, especially, because some of them come from some of the rougher parts of Baltimore City where it's not readily available to them. And for them to have that experience is just great. Now, one time, when we were doing it in the summertime, I think we were doing Heidi, and there was a group of like 16 to 17-year-olds there.
Mm.
They looked like they just wanted to beat the crap out of us after the show and leave.
Yeah,
Maybe a bit of a misbooking there. I'm not sure, but
not as fun when you're doing it for teenagers. They
right,
don't get
right.
it the same.
Not so much. So from Bat, you moved on to college.
Yeah,
It says you went to Syracuse.
correct. I went to
Okay.
Syracuse, yeah,
And you continued your studies there.
I did. I was a musical theater major at Syracuse. Yeah.
Oh, okay. The Orangeman.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
And I expected to come back to New York, and Broadway was what I had my eyes set on.
sure.
And after I auditioned for several things over and over again, I had casting directors say, "Oh, well, you should be doing TV and film. Why
Mhm.
aren't you doing TV and film?" And I was like, "Well, wait a minute, I want to do Broadway."
Right,
And
right.
yeah, so it's kind of
Mhm.
funny. My career took a little bit of a turn just based on feedback that I got,
Mhm.
which was interesting. And then I got an agent, and my agents were sending me out for things like commercials, and I never knew I could do a commercial. I didn't know it was, and then I didn't realize I'd be good at them. Like it was something like, oh, like
Mhm.
behind the camera work for some reason felt comfortable to me. I didn't feel like, someone, I was able to kind of buy into it and just kind of sell a product and, without imagining the camera was there.
Mhm.
So that was my bread and butter for a long time after college was commercials. And, I could quit my waitressing job and make money, which was great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And working steady. I mean, that's everybody's dream in this business, to
Yeah.
get something where you just have steady gigs coming in, and you're, I mean, amen,
Yeah.
So, I was looking too, and it says you've got some theater credits. And the ones listed here are Chicago, Kiss Me Kate, and Crimes of the Heart. Where did you do those?
Oh, goodness. That's funny. Well, Kiss Me Kate was the one that's really worthy of mention.
Mhm.
That, was at the Goodspeed Opera House, which is a really, really reputable regional theater.
Mhm.
And that particular production was supposed to go to Broadway. And that was
Oh,
really exciting. We were all set to go. We had these Broadway producers. A lot of the shows from that theater would go on to Broadway. Um, and we had a bunch of producers that were set to come see the show. And it was supposed to be a go. And then Kevin Kline bought the rights to do it in the park that summer.
hmm.
So everything, like, the show was great at the theater, but our whole Broadway, dream got thrown down the toilet. So it's another example of this, the entertainment business is really not the business that people think it is. It's you're up one day, you're down the next.
Yeah,
It's no,
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. And yeah, I know. It's the I don't get me started. Yeah,
yeah.
and I'm not going to take up your episode with
No, I know
my
you know.
rants, but we've discussed offline, and you believe me, you've we're preaching each other's choirs here, where
Yeah,
when it comes to those things.
yeah.
So um you've done some Hallmark movies. Tell us about those.
I did. Oh my gosh, that was probably the best experience of my entire career.
Mm-hmm.
Was I did a Hallmark Hall of Fame movie for CBS,
Mm-hmm.
and it had Brenda Fricker, who won the Academy Award for My Left Foot with Daniel Day-Lewis. She
Oh,
was
sure, yeah.
in it. And then I don't know if you ever remember that movie with Julia Roberts called Sleeping with the Enemy.
Yes.
So her husband in that movie was Patrick Bergen. He played my
Oh, yeah.
father in this show. So, I mean, I had to go to Ireland to,
Mhm.
I flew to Ireland to shoot it. There was only 3 Americans in it, um, which was pretty cool. And everyone else was very famous Irish actors, including Brenda Fricker, Patrick Bergen. There was a guy, I wish I could remember his name, really famous Irish actor. And so, I show up the first day for the table read, and there's Patrick Bergen, who's my father. And I'm like, I've
Mhm.
seen that movie. Not only am I intimidated because he's scary, but it's like, he's a big movie star.
Oh, he
Um,
was in that movie too. I mean, that
yeah,
guy was just like, whoa,
yeah.
I mean, that was, yeah.
And he's the nicest guy you could ever imagine. So was Brenda, really both lovely. But the whole experience was just incredible because they it's a big budget,
Mhm.
this film. So, I had my own trailer. That's the one experience where you felt like a star.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, like I would shoot a scene. I'll never forget. We had to shoot a scene. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I had to come outside to the guy who played my love interest, and I had to come out, in like a nightgown, and it was cold, and it was August in Ireland, but
Mhm.
it's like 50s, 60s, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. It's the seasons are kind of
Yeah,
askew, at different
and
parts of
yeah,
the world. Yeah.
exactly. And they did have a bit of a heat wave while we were there, which was
Mhm.
great, like 70s. It was like upper 70s. But at night it was cold. And I
Mhm.
remember being out there in this little nightgown and like shivering. And as soon as they go cut, they'd come over and wrap a blanket around me. Someone would give me a hot water bottle,
Mhm.
and then someone else would come over with a water and a drink, and someone else start doing your hair. And I'm like, oh my God, like all these people are taking care of me. It was like 7 people surrounding you, and you felt like, wow, okay, now I've made it. This is it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that movie it's a Hallmark movie, so it's
Mhm.
not the most thrilling movie when you're watching it. You can get bored in those movies. It's family movie, but I had my own dialect coach. He would come to my trailer every day. I, that they put wigs on me, and the costumes were amazing. I learned how to truly Irish dance. They cut it out of the movie, but it was kind of cool. I did like the real Irish, jig dancing or whatever you call it. And then, it was shot on the Guinness Estates, which
Oh,
was
wow.
stunning, like out in the Wicklow Mountains, just outside of Dublin. And it was extraordinary. And even the hotel we stayed in, my hotel room was probably the size of like 5 normal hotel rooms that in America. It was
Nice.
huge, high, like 12-foot ceilings. It was stunning and just one of the best experiences. Yeah.
Now, was that your first, as we would say, trip to the dance, or was that
At that point in my career, I had done a few like independent movies,
oh, sure.
done a bunch of theater. I'd done a ton of commercials. So I felt like I'd been in, the professional world a lot.
Yeah, okay.
But that was the first film that felt like, it just felt like a big deal.
Right.
And I was really surprised. I didn't think I was going to get it either. Like I remember the audition so well. It's so funny that you don't remember many of them, but I remember that particular audition, and I had no idea how to do an Irish accent, but I just faked it, and apparently I did it okay. And then I got trained how to do a real one. I had done it. That's not true. I did know a little bit how to do an Irish accent because I had done another movie the year before. I had done a movie in Ireland as well that was shot in County Cork in Ireland. But this one, was a John B. Keane novel, which was like a famous writer in Ireland. I actually got to meet him, which was the coolest thing ever, and tell him that I played Annie Delaney, and so it was really, really Annie Mulaney, actually. And so that was really cool to tell him, that I had been in his story. And then just, it premiered in LA. So I got to be flown to LA, and I sat there in the third row watching the film up on the screen. And at the end, and I don't mean to sound like I'm tooting my own horn because, I'm not doing much right now, but at the very end, the president of CBS, got up on stage, and he had, was speaking to everybody, and he pointed me out and said, look out for her. She's going to be, the next big thing. And now that didn't happen for many reasons, which we could go into, but it was like, I just remember being, it was an incredible experience.
I can imagine. Getting recognized like that, any kind of recognition for something, because the thing, you never know what people are going to think of something.
Yeah.
I see it all the time in murder mysteries. Whenever I think of a bit, I'm usually the cop, so I'm doing like an opening monologue. And whenever I think of a topical joke or something to put in there about my, in character, talking about my previous police work, sometimes I think I'm going to knock it out of the park with a joke, and I get like
Yeah.
Or then other times I'll say something that I'm just like, all right, I'll put it in just to add some time, and people just hit the deck.
Right.
And so you never know. And it's always a good feeling whenever you do something that is well received like that.
Absolutely.
You really felt like you knocked it out of the park. You're kind of up on cloud 9.
Absolutely. And part of it is that it was good writing. It was good storytelling. I had a great, co-star. He and I had charisma. And the character I could really stand behind. She was feisty, Irish girl. It was just, so there's a lot of reasons that it was a great experience, but it was, for me, it showed me off in a really good light.
Oh, good. Again, that's always a great thing to have happen. So, you told me a lot about your experiences on the Guiding Light, and I have to say that I don't know much about soap operas, but I was looking this up. I was looking through, some things about the Guiding Light, and it turns out that was the one my mother watched when I was in middle school, so I would see it after school.
Oh, really?
So I did know about it, and I did remember the name Spalding. I did remember a couple of the people that I saw in there, like in the credits and their pictures and everything. Now, I have to say,
the Lewis's, the Bowers. Do you remember
yes.
Bauer?
Okay. And so I did remember a bit about it, from years before when you were on there. And then, having like, working during the day, it just wasn't always conducive to me seeing it. But
Yeah.
I do remember it, and I did remember seeing like a lot of the faces of the actors when I was looking up the show online. And so you were on there for a good number of years, and I really want to find out about this because I mean they run new episodes every day pretty much, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes we did more than one, but yes, it was usually a new episode every day.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So if your character was popular,
Hmm.
you were memorizing, 20 pages of lines a night, maybe more if they were doing a double episode. So occasionally they'd have to play catch up for like when they had time off. And so we would
Yeah.
have double episodes for various reasons, holidays and things like that.
Hmm.
So yeah, so it was a lot. It was a lot. That talk about pressure. And that's what that really prepared me for,
Yeah.
because that was high pressure.
Hmm.
That was money. And back when I started on that show, we actually had dress rehearsals. So
Hmm.
we would have actually a morning rehearsal where everyone was really cranky and no makeup and miserable at 7 a.m. And then around like between 9:30 and like 10:30, you had an on-set dress rehearsal where their director would just say, okay, you're going to stand here, you're going to go turn around here, you're going to do that, and that was it. It was what you weren't really rehearsing the script. You were
Hmm.
just kind of like being told where you're sitting and standing, what you're carrying, getting props, and then you would go to set for depending on your lineup of how the show, where the order of the episode. They would shoot all the scenes in the Bower house, for example, at one time, even though they would appear different times
Sure.
on the
Right.
show.
Right.
Right. And so depending where your lineup was, you would go and shoot all of those scenes. So you had to know the lines for all 5 or 6 of your scenes.
Mm.
And oftentimes they're very emotional or dramatic.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's tough work for an actor, because when you're
Mm.
trained, like especially as a theater actor, and you're trained like in an authentic way to sort of bring truthfulness to what you're playing, you're really diving in deep sometimes, and you want that rehearsal time so that you can, like in theater, we have like, well, not in bat, but in most theater, you have 6 weeks of rehearsal and you get to kind of play with the emotions and get to kind of, feel what it feels like. And your body memorizes
Mhm.
those feelings in an authentic way so that you can repeat it 8 shows a week, right? In theater. On a soap, you got to get it right away in your head, in your body, and you have to be able to. That's why a lot of actors were not successful, and people would say, "Oh, they're terrible. They're terrible." It's not that they're terrible; they had no rehearsal time. They had
Yeah.
to just kind of get out there, and if you
Mhm.
weren't someone who could work under high pressure circumstances, you weren't going to pull off a good performance.
Yeah, I
Um,
could, because I do remember just from watching it after school, you'd always hear the part of so and so is now being played by, somebody else
that
because
happened.
yeah. So, and I would just guess, I mean, having to basically you're starting from scratch every day. And were there times too, I'd seen, well, I saw Tootsie with Dustin Hoffman, which was about
Yeah.
a soap opera.
Yes.
And there were some times on there where something would go wrong in that movie, and they said, "We're going live tomorrow." Did you ever film anything live?
So no, because that ended, I don't, maybe the early 80s. That
Okay.
ended. They used to do that a lot,
Mhm.
and they used to do it live all the time, and
Mhm.
then occasionally they had to do live. But when I was doing it, no. So we never had teleprompters or anything like that either. That's like a big misconception. People think that we were reading our lines off the side. No, we had to memorize.
Mm.
But what happened was, like I said, you could get one, maybe 2 takes when I started. We would, you have your little rehearsal time, and then you'd go to tape. And if you mess it up, they go, okay, you want to give it another go? And you get it one more time. And then maybe if you really messed up, you could do it a third, maybe fourth time. That was it. When I was leaving the show, and all the shows were dying and they were desperate to keep them on the air and they were trying to save money, they would go right to tape, no rehearsal, and they didn't care if you messed it up. Like you had to mess it up horribly for them to do it again a second time. You had to get it in one take. So we were like, oh my God, like, talk about being stiff.
Welcome to
So
the NFL, man.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
And you had to really rely on your other actors
Hmm.
for your rehearsal time before you got on set. So, I mean, I was lucky. I had Paul Anthony Stewart as my co-star, and he's an amazing actor, a big Broadway actor too. And so he was great. We would, rehearse and make sure we had it down before we got out on set because we knew it was, they wanted it one take if you could, so.
Boy, I mean, geez, always talk about intense, and did they expect everything word perfect? I mean, would they jump on you if it wasn't word perfect or
So that it depended on the day. That was
okay.
the number one thing in the morning when we would go at 7 a.m. All the
Hmm.
actors were so grouchy and just grumpy, and they'd be like, "I am not saying this. This is ridiculous. This is BS. No way." And so we would all go through these moments, and the director would be like, "Okay, I understand, but I can't control that." And usually we would, rewrite it ourselves so that it sounded realistic.
Hmm. Sure,
This
sure.
is what I learned from my co-star. I didn't do that at first. On my first episode, by the way, which is the first one that everybody you Google and that's the first thing you see. I did exactly what they told me to do. And it's horrible because nobody in real life goes the way they make
Hmm.
me scream bloody murder and say these words. And my co-star, Paul, was like, "Oh no, don't say that. Don't say that.
Hmm.
Say the way you would say it." And so we used to rewrite it. And every once in a while the producers would say, "No, you have to say the written thing. You have to say the written thing." Certain things they wanted you to say, the word for word. But sometimes we changed it because they had so many dialogue writers that weren't reading each other's work. So they would actually write something that wasn't true, like something they said that you did the day before. We're like, "No, that's not what my character did.
Hmm.
That's actually
Right,
not what
right.
happened. I'm not saying that. That's ridiculous." So we
Hmm.
would get all worked up, and then by 9:30, once we had our coffee and our makeup on, we were like, "Oh, it's fine. I'll say it. It's okay. You're paying
Hmm.
me. It's okay." They're people.
Wow, wow. Gosh. Mm, I guess there were probably times when you would get your script for the next day and you're probably just like, you're just like looking through and you're just like, oh my God, if you've got, 40 or 50 paragraph length lines, I don't know how you did it,
There's a lot of long nights in my bathtub. I used to get
yeah.
my bathtub with my script, try to relax, and
Hmm.
just read the lines. And my husband would run my lines with me.
Hmm.
I would be like, "You got to run the lines with me. You got to run the lines with me," because you just had to. It was repetition after a while. You just had to keep repeating it. You had to know it, so much so that you could act it. You really couldn't get behind the material if you didn't have
Hmm.
it so entrenched in your head.
Jeez. And you had two or three children at the time too, didn't you?
Oh God. And then it was the worst when my daughter was born.
Hmm.
So first of all, this is the other funny thing about soap operas is that you get pregnant in real life. They don't want you to get pregnant, right? So there's like the last thing you want to do is tell the producers that you're pregnant. I mean, literally the one producer, Paul Roush, God rest his soul, he's passed on. He would smoke a cigar, blow it in your face. "Don't you like your job?" Like literally. This man was like not he
Jeez.
did not want to ever have to
Hmm.
tell them that. And so then you're pregnant, and if they didn't write it into the story, like they did not for me, they wrote me pregnant after my kids were born, which was a little annoying. But you get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they get closer and closer to your face. Your face gets bigger and bigger and bigger. You're holding bags, you're holding plants, you're standing behind furniture. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's
Hmm.
everything that people, joke about in a soap opera is not pretty. And then my daughter, and this is also the best, my daughter was 2 weeks late. So I only had, barely 6 weeks off. And so I went back to work when she was just a little more than 3 weeks old.
Hmm.
So I had maybe an hour and a half of sleep before I would get to set. And I remember those days doing like just trying to memorize the lines, trying to memorize the lines. And my sister would come with me, take care of the baby in my dressing room. And then I would go on set and I would do it and I'd come back out and I'm like, "Oh my God, I have no idea if I even said any of the lines. I don't remember anything. Like, it was just gone. Like I couldn't retain it. Like,
My gosh.
I guess I did because I didn't get fired. You know, it's like,
Right, right. And that's another thing too. I mean, the pressure to be able to get out there and perform, and it's yeah, I mean, unless you're slam dunking everything in that high pressure environment, I mean, you're walking a very fine line too, I could imagine.
absolutely. That
Mhm,
was there was a lot of pressure to look a certain way.
mhm,
You know, you needed to be popular with the fans. It was a big deal. And we, thank God we were. I mean, I walked into a very popular character, which is great, also really hard because I was the fourth actress to play this character. And I mean, just crazy. And the actress before me was really popular. They
mhm,
loved her. And she had a great take on this character. My take was completely different. And so
mhm,
luckily, they took to me very, very soon. Like, I mean, I got a few fan mail letters in the beginning that were a little like,
mhm.
not so nice. And then it quickly changed and I kind of turned them in my corner. But it was a lot of pressure because this was a super couple. It
Right,
was
right, right.
on the show. And so I kind of was, just kind of thrown right into that. And again, I had a great co star. He and I had great chemistry on screen, and that helped a lot. And we ended up being, the number one couple on CBS for weeks and weeks and weeks. Every once in a while we'd go to number two, maybe once in a while number three, and then we were back to number one, which was great. So that was important to the producers. And so you lose that popularity, and it got it was intense. Like you had to
Mhm.
really stay on top.
Sure, sure. You had mentioned too that some of the things about the producer getting on you because you were pregnant. Now, did you have all three of your kids during this run?
I had two of mine,
Two.
and then the third one, I was not on the show at the time, but I came back right after I had him.
Oh, okay, okay.
So
So it was later. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Um,
And that was
yeah.
not pleasant either because I think I mentioned to you the story. I mean, you know, I felt like of course, maybe when you're pregnant, you always feel like you look great after you have a baby because you no longer have this giant thing in your belly.
Yeah,
So I felt like I looked great. I mean, I had like maybe 10 pounds to lose. Like that was
yeah,
it. I
yeah.
thought,
Mhm,
it was, I think at the time, when this story happened, um, John Conboy was the executive producer. And I think my daughter was 6 or 7 weeks old, maybe. And
mhm.
so I was still breastfeeding. So, I was a little bloated. You still hold on to your water weight a bit.
Sure,
But
yeah.
I had literally 10 pounds left. I thought I was doing great. But they put me in this storyline where I was with these two younger girls. They're 19 and 20 in real life. I mean, they were young. And so I was in the storyline with them, and we were we were sitting on the set doing one of the rehearsals I was telling you about.
Mhm.
So the rehearsal is for the camera. It's not for us, right? We're
Right,
on the
right.
set to move around so the cameras can decide where they're going to get the angles. And the studio had 3 floors. And the fourth floor is where the producers' offices were and all the main offices. And they all had the TV screens in the room so they could see what was
Mhm,
happening on set. They could hear what was happening on set. And then there was a fifth floor where there were some dressing rooms and different stuff. And then the sixth floor is where the studios were. So I'm on the sixth floor and we're rehearsing this scene, and it's me and these other two girls, and they have goldfish, the little, the
yeah, crackers,
regular,
yeah.
yeah, crackers on the set. And I am starving. It's 9:30 in the morning. I probably hadn't had breakfast, and I'm like I said, I'm breastfeeding my baby who's
Mhm.
in my dressing room, and so I'm like eating these goldfish while we're rehearsing, and I'm like, oh God, I'm so hungry eating these goldfish. Next thing you know, from 2 floors below, and there's 100 people or more on set, and out of nowhere, 50 feet away from me, I hear this voice, and it's the producer going, "What are you eating? What are you eating?" And I immediately was like, "Goldfish?" And he's like, "I'm trying to get you down to a size 4, and you're eating that?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I put it back, and the girl next to me goes, um, I'm like a size 0. I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, he's talking to me. She just didn't get it at all. It just went over her head. And I was like, okay. And it was humiliating, but luckily
Wow.
I didn't feel bad about myself. Had I felt badly about myself, I think it would have really triggered something in me.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
more like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like that is just rude,
Mm.
And oh my God, all the cameramen were like mortified. They felt so bad. Everyone was like, they all liked me, so they felt bad, and I was like, whatever, I don't care. I'm hungry, but I won't eat them. Fine.
Jeez, a whiz. I mean, it's not like you had the giant hot fudge sundae or something,
Yeah,
it was just
right.
a couple of,
Well, apparently, I think he got spoken to by another producer later that someone relayed the story, and then
mhm,
I got apologies and whatnot, and he's lucky that I was not one of those uppity
mhm,
actresses who was sensitive, and because I probably could have made a big deal about it. I didn't. Whatever. I let it slide.
mhm.
Looking back now, maybe I should have.
You know something, you're bringing this up here, and this is something that's just been kind of a pet peeve of mine. Again, I've had a couple of trips to the show. I mean, not a long and storied career at the professional level by any means. No, I've had just a couple of credits, a couple of cups of coffee. But the thing that really gets me, and I see this, and it's sad. I see some of these, high profile actresses,
Mhm.
and I'm like, what did you do to your face? My God. It's like,
I
who
know.
who are these plastic surgeons that are just, yeah, yeah, maybe it's not right to say this either, but to prompt somebody to go that far. And
Hmm.
I mean, I look at some of the ones, like Joan Rivers,
Oh my
when
God. Yeah. Yeah.
towards the
That
end of
was.
her life,
Yeah.
Joan Rivers, Meg Ryan,
Yeah.
um, and there's a
I
few
know.
others and I'm like, first of all, you know, there are parts for everybody. There are 50-year-old women that are in shows as well as 20-year-old women. There are men that age, get all up, and nobody says anything to the men, which
I know.
that's no good. I mean,
No, when a
that's
man gets older, they, look better. They are more distinguished. When a woman
yeah,
gets older, they're less appealing and they're thought of as,
yeah,
like, you know,
dead wood or whatever.
yeah.
But yeah, but
It's kind of sad that that's been that's the way our society has looked at it, you know.
yeah, I mean, it really is. But I mean, the thing is that I mean, if you're especially if a show is long lived, like some of these shows go 5 years, some of them go 12 or 15 sometimes. You know, I mean, is everybody going to look the same as they did in 2000 as they did in 2015? Or,
Right.
people are going to age, people are going to get a little heavier, people are going to, but this pressure to stay young looking. And second of all, why haven't these doctors been run out of town? They're
Hmm.
apparently not very good.
Right, right, right,
I mean,
right, right. Why? I know. Why would they do that? Yeah.
it's almost like that Twilight Zone episode. You remember Beauty in the Eye of the Beholder, where,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, it's just,
Well, I had to say I loved
yeah,
watching recently, I don't know if you watched The Bear. Have you seen The Bear?
I haven't seen that one yet.
Oh,
No.
you gotta watch The Bear. And Jamie Lee Curtis is on it,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
she allows them to show her age, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
refreshing.
Hmm.
She's in her 70s, I think. 70, I think I don't want to age her, but I think she's in her 70s, maybe. Maybe not
60s, I think.
65?
I think she's
Maybe
about
60. Oh God.
65,
Oh
something like
God.
that.
I'm sorry. Sorry if anyone don't offend anybody. But yeah. But I mean, she shows, that she's an older woman now,
Hmm.
and she's still beautiful, and she's a fabulous actress. I mean, she's amazing in this show,
Hmm.
by the way. So it was refreshing. It's like, oh, good. She didn't do all that, stretching of
Hmm.
the face and all that stuff.
Wow.
To your
Yeah.
point, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing, too. I mean, I've noticed that even people who are not actresses, there's just a lot of women they're just letting their hair go gray,
Yeah.
which I think it looks good. I don't think it looks bad at
Ooh, yeah.
all,
Yeah.
It's just, people age. It's a part of life, I really hope that this whole plastic surgery thing just, like even Mickey Rourke too,
I
I mean,
know.
I just hope this whole thing just comes to an end,
I
you know.
know. Me too.
I mean, that's just really A, it's not a good way to treat a person, and
Right.
B, that just can't be healthy, you
Yeah.
know.
It's part of that pressure that we're talking about. It's put on you for things to be successful. Everyone has this ideal in their mind and that
Hmm.
we have to be a certain way. I mean, that was the other thing on the soap too, is that they were constantly they had what do they call those what they called when they would ask audiences opinions, not the censors, but anyway, I can't think of what it's called, but
Surveys or polls or
yeah,
something,
like the
or
poll, they were poll people constantly about what they liked, what they didn't like. So one week, we could hold a drink in our hand. The next week, no alcohol in any of the scenes, like not a real drink anyway. It was always fake, but I'm saying
oh
like
yeah,
your character all of a sudden couldn't be drinking any alcohol, or you wouldn't wear a certain outfit.
hmm
Like they literally would change my character's wardrobe based on opinions in these polls and these things. It was just so bizarre. Like, it's like, oh, okay, now all of a sudden your hair had to be a different way, or you didn't want not as much blonde this time. Like, it's kind of insane.
yeah, yeah. Oh man, God,
Yeah,
hmm. I can't
yeah,
imagine. Now you had this is kind of funny. Um, you went to some fan events, and everybody assumed that you were married to your co-star.
yeah.
Tell
Yeah,
us about that one.
they used to come up to a couple of different times. We did a lot of these. We did fan events like skiing ones where we would ski with fans, and then we
Hmm.
did golf ones in Florida, and we'd
Oh,
fly out to
sure,
Florida.
yeah.
And I remember sitting with my husband a couple different times, and they would come up and be like, "Well, where's your husband?" I'm like, "This is my husband." No, no, no. Like they would, people would get very upset. They get really,
Hmm.
really, attached to your characters, and
Hmm.
they would also pull me aside and be like, "We don't like that you're fighting with Danny. You need to make sure you and Danny are." I'm like, "I don't write it. I don't have any control."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Then they would get, some of them would get that, and they would still pull me aside and say, "You need to talk to the writers and you need to let them know." I'm like, "I don't meet the writers. We don't get to meet them ever. Like
Yeah, yeah.
that's not part of our thing." I mean, they were constantly trying to influence us. But this one particular time we were in Florida, I was with this woman named Elizabeth Hopwood, who was on the show also. She's a beautiful, beautiful actress. And she and her husband and my husband, we were sharing like one of the apartments together that somebody donated for us to stay in. And I forget, like we had to load the car for some reason, and I remember like the people in the resort where we were staying were kind of not being very nice to she and I, and they were like fawning over our husbands, and like apparently they thought our husbands were the ones who were on the show, and we were just like the hired help along or something. I don't know. My husband loved it though. They were like asking for his autograph, and I was like,
Hmm.
oh, this is interesting. Yeah, but we had a lot of those were fun. Those were fun events because we would golf in like a foursome, so each celebrity would get
Hmm.
to be in I was like, I did golf. I was not a very good golfer. So I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm messing up your foursome.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really funny though, because it, the act Jenna Fisher played
Mhm.
Pam on The Office. Used to get the same thing all the time. She'd be out with her husband, and they thought that she was really married to John Krasinski in
Yeah,
real life, and like, no, they're
yeah,
not. It's funny the things that people get into their heads sometimes.
yeah.
It really is.
They
It
were
really
so
is.
attached to Danny and Michelle. In fact, the fans were called the Maniacs,
Hmm.
The Maniacs. I mean, they were lovely though. We had great fans that were so dedicated. They
Hmm.
were so nice. They would bring us gifts and they would send us cakes and food, and
Hmm.
they were great. We were lucky.
You better not let that producer see that.
Yeah, no, I know. Oh my God. If he had only seen what my co-star and I used to go eat together all the time, we were both foodies. We love food. And I
Oh
was
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I was like, I don't diet. I was lucky. I didn't really need to.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was
Yeah. So you've done a number of other things too, and you sent me a number of notes. You had a part where you were hanging from a wire, like in Mission Impossible, and having
oh,
to
that
do
was on Guiding
surgery.
Light. Those were Guiding Light crazy things that I got to do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, to hang upside down from wire. I had to do like extra training, physical training to be strong
Yeah.
enough to do it. Yeah, all of those little what else did I say I did? I guess it was all Guiding Light. Oh, I had amnesia on the show.
Right. Right.
Warehouse fire. That's the part of the show that's not so glamorous when you're
Mhm.
laying on a dirty studio floor for like hours because you're in an explosion and they're like just letting you lay there and like it's cold here. There's like mice probably walking by. You're like, okay, can I get up yet? No, no, they're painting blood on you, and you're just like, you're in it. And
So
there's breathing in all sorts of dust and just, gross, disgusting stuff in the air that they have to use to make the explosion.
right. Yeah. Some of the things that I was in a low budget local commercial about and there was an explosion and I was like Yosemite Sam all covered with soot and everything and blown up looking.
Yeah.
And I forget what it was they put on me, but it was it
You're like
wasn't
wondering,
very savory. It wasn't very nice.
right?
And so I'm well aware of that and having to lay on the floor and
Yeah.
everything. And
They had like, set pieces on top of me because it was a warehouse explosion that was supposed to collapse on me. And I
sure,
was
yeah, the building, yeah.
like, oh my God, this was not, but when I had amnesia, that was like the best week of my life on the show because
Hmm.
I could just lay there in the bed with my eyes closed, and then if I woke up, like I didn't, I had
Hmm.
hardly any lines because
Right.
once she woke up, she did, but I
Mhm.
mean, she was just laying there for a while in a coma. That was the
Mhm.
best being in the coma. Oh my God. You get
Oh
paid the
yeah.
same, no lines, nothing to memorize, just show up at work. They didn't even put makeup on you. It was like great.
Yeah, hey. You've also played let me see, you had five weddings. What was that?
Well, that was with Danny and Michelle as
Oh,
well.
okay.
Yeah, these are
And
all little Guiding Light crazy, storylines that we got. And I mean that the probably the worst storyline I ever had to do
mhm.
was when I had just had my second daughter. And
Mhm.
when you have babies, your hormones are all over the place. And so I that it was like she was probably a few months old, and then they decided to make my character pregnant right towards the end,
Mhm.
and so I had to my character went into labor, but like there was an explosion. There was some guy trying, some prince on the show, Edmund, trying to steal my baby, and so he made it look like he kind of drugged me, and that I had the baby on the side of the road, and he
Mhm.
helped deliver the baby, but he made the car explode. So I thought that the baby had been blown up in the car, which I thought was the
Oh,
meanest thing that those writers could have done to a woman who just had a baby. So I had to
wow.
play that my baby was dead. You know what I mean? Like it was
Mhm.
horrible. It was horrible. And and if you're someone like me, and I try to authentically act. Like
Mhm.
I try to bring it from a real place. So I was like, method acting. I'm like a mess, crying and screaming, like for this baby. And then I come home that day from work, and my husband's like, "How you doing?" I'm like, "This is the worst day ever." Just like he's like, "Oh my God."
Mm, wow.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
not.
And you played Lucille Ball.
So yeah, again on Guiding Light, they do crazy things. Michelle had a dream that she and Danny were Lucy and Ricky. And that was also probably the second coolest thing I ever got to do because I looked like Lucille Ball. They dressed me up
Mhm.
like Lucille Ball. And I got to act out like a scene that would have been, like one of those scenes that she would have done, like where she's like cooking and she accidentally spills all over Ricky, and she's like, oh, it was really fun. That was really fun.
Mhm.
And it actually came out great, that scene. I wish I could see that. I'm sure I could probably find it on the internet somewhere. But it looked like, Ricky and Lucy. It was really cool.
Wow. Wow. Were you a fan of hers?
I was. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I love Lucille Ball. I
She,
remember watching that show when I was really little. We
mhm.
didn't have a lot of options of TV shows, and we would, I watched that a lot.
that was, I have to say, having seen her, I mean, she's definitely a pioneer in a lot of ways. Not only, I mean, was she hilarious? I mean, Lucy, I love Lucy and all the other ones really. The situation she would get in, I mean, she was absolutely like very natural and just a pro at making comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I always say all the time, they say, you've been busy. I'm like, I've been like Lucille Ball in the Candy Factory,
Yeah, Candy Factory. The one
that
who
busy.
when she's taking all
Yeah.
the best.
But I've also had a number of guests on the show over the years who have worked with her. And they said, not only was she hilarious, but she was very much very like a very nurturing, very mentoring type of person. And I tell you what, she knew technically, she was very, very technically astute. She knew all about lighting, all
Yeah.
about cameras and camera angles and sound. I mean, she really knew her stuff, and nothing was going to
Wow.
get past her on a set. And I think that's just amazing. That she was just so really a jack of all trades and really
Yeah.
could have done anything.
Yeah.
Even if she wasn't an actress, would have been really good technically. And
Very, very capable woman coming from a time where,
mhm,
it wasn't necessarily expected from women, so
right,
it's great.
right. And speaking of, they weren't even allowed to say she was pregnant. They had to say she
Yeah.
was expecting, and I don't think they were
Right.
even allowed to. They had to shoot her completely from the neck up or from the
Right.
chest up.
Right. That's right. Oh my gosh. She
Yep,
was expecting. Isn't that funny?
it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It was, and over the years too. It was, and that was another thing too. At Bat, I kind of had to explain to people. Something was said and something was changed in one of the plays from damn, don't say damn, say darn.
Right.
And somebody was asking about that. And I said, look, the people running this theater, okay, they come from a time when on TV you couldn't say pregnant,
Right.
you
That's right.
couldn't show somebody being pregnant. Men and women had twin beds, full pajamas, and nothing was ever said about
Yeah.
that.
I wish someone had explained it like that to me. That you're
Yeah.
right. That's the time that they came from. That's why, yeah, it
Hmm.
makes sense.
So,
Boy, times have
even if,
changed.
right, even if it said damn in the script, you were saying darn, and this is why,
Right.
you know. And
Right.
if you remember too, the audiences they used to bus in,
Yeah.
they were of that
Mhm.
era as well,
Right. That's absolutely, yeah.
definitely,
Oh,
most definitely of that era. And so yeah, I mean, this is really great that I've finally got the chance to connect with you and everything and hear your
yeah.
stories. And and you and I have talked off, and it's a tough business. It really is,
It is. It's not a
it's
loyal business, unfortunately.
it's not a loyal business. It's full of probably one of the more frustrating, aggravating,
Mhm.
disappointing businesses. But the thing is that you got to love to make art to be able to be in it. You just have to be patient, and these are all the things my manager says to me.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's funny because it's one of the reasons why I think I was attracted to yoga. And I, since, I own a yoga studio and have become a yoga teacher,
Hmm.
I think because I spent so much time in that, recreating trauma, right?
Hmm.
Because, in theater, right, we're trying to bring drama to life. And there's so much trauma that you recreate and you spend so much time in this nervous, your nervous system is like up here, that I just wanted the opposite. And I wanted to give the opposite to other people, just to
Hmm.
relax that parasympathetic nervous system and kind of feel what it's like to just breathe and be. And so, it's interesting that I do love acting and I love the work and I would never turn it away. I don't seek it out like I used to
Sure.
because, it's
Hmm.
hard to, put yourself in a position also, where you're begging for a job. That's what it feels like when you're auditioning for jobs. And especially when you've had a certain amount of success, it's hard to go back and go, oh, okay, can I get a job again? And so it's not that I think it's out there for me again. I feel that that urge to do to act again. I do love it that much, but I do enjoy being calm and not having to get that high pressured scenario. It's a lot. It's a
It
lot on your
is.
body.
It really is. And the other part of it too is that, sometimes you have to rely on other people that aren't always the best and brightest as well.
Yeah.
You had mentioned something that had happened, a pretty big thing that had happened to you, that kind of fell through because of somebody dropped the ball. Did you want to talk about that?
Oh gosh. Oh yeah. So that was, well, what's interesting about that story is more um it's more about how an actor's life is often rejection, right? You're
Really?
you
I didn't know. Yeah,
you
of
put yourself
course.
out there over and over again, and you're
Mm-hmm.
rejected a lot. So, like even in commercials,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I did a lot of my work was in commercials, right? And you would audition for 100 and book one out of 100, right? The odds were just, I got lucky that back in the day when they wanted
Yeah.
the all American girl. It's not really what's popular now, which is good. It's fine. Um, I did work a lot, but you would audition for something, and when you didn't get it, especially when you come from this world where you're judging yourself all the time,
Mhm.
right? You assumed, oh, I must not have done a good job, or oh, I messed that up, or whatever. You made assumptions. So I was auditioning for the last season of 90210, which was the original 90210, not the remake.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
Meg Simon was the casting director. She was a big casting director at Fox, and she really liked me, and she liked me for this particular role. And my agent was very Hollywood at the time, and they kept saying, oh yeah, 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 oh you're it. She says you're the next big thing, you're the next big thing. I'm like rolling my eyes, yeah, yeah, I'm sure they say to everybody. And so I auditioned. I was told I was the first choice for this part. I went back for the screen test, so to speak, where they put you on tape, and I didn't hear anything. I was like, oh my god, what happened? Like a couple weeks went by, and then like a month went by, and and my agent was like, yeah, I guess you didn't get it. And I was really like upset. I was like, this is what I was told.
Hmm.
I was number one. That was it. Um, so like 3 months went by, and I was out with my friends. We went out to dinner. We were at this restaurant, and the bartender at the restaurant, we were sitting waiting for our table, and we went sitting at the bar, have a drink, and she goes, "Oh my God, you're Nancy St. Alban." And I go, "Yeah, hi." And she goes, "I'm Meg Simon's assistant." And I was like, "Oh, nice to meet you." She goes, "Do you know why you didn't like get that part? Do you know the story? What happened?" And I go, "No, I don't know anything. Like, what do you mean?" She goes, oh my God. She said, there was a Friday that I had done the test, and it was back when they would put it on VHS, and they put it in the mail, sent it to California, and they upped the shoot dates. It wasn't supposed to start for another like week or two, and they decided to start that particular episode on that Monday.
Mm.
So they went with their second choice. She goes, so they didn't get the tape in time, so they went with the second choice. And I was like, so it was like one of those moments of really like so and in some ways it was very rewarding and validating, you know what I mean? Because you're like,
Right. Right.
okay, so I didn't do a bad job. I did a good job. But then
Hmm.
you're like, whoa, like how does that happen?
Yep.
And that would never happen now because now we have digital and we just instant and they've got the tape, but
Yeah. Boom. It's there, and
yeah.
within seconds if you have a good connection. But yeah, it's
It's
like,
definitely changed the trajectory of
mm,
my career because doing the soap, which was a lovely experience. I never wanted to do a soap. I never
mhm,
ever had any respect for soaps, and that was not on my agenda, but it was a great experience. I loved every minute of it. I would do it again in a heartbeat.
mhm,
um so but it would have changed the trajectory because once you're on a soap, it's really difficult. It was difficult for me to do anything else.
mhm.
I also had that story. I think I told you I did Miss Congeniality too, and I was shooting a scene with Sandra Bullock,
Mhm.
And I worked with Sandra Bullock all day long, and I shot this scene. And then for whatever reason, they didn't like something was not right in the scene, and they needed to reshoot it. And so they said, okay, we want Nancy again to reshoot the scene. And my storyline was big on guiding light. And they were like, nope, you can't go. What do you mean? I had to fly to LA to do it. And they're like, nope. I was like, oh my God, are you kidding
Mm.
me? Like, this is like a big opportunity. And they wouldn't let me go. So they had to find another actor to replace me in that movie. So again, it was not a huge part in the movie, but it would have been a good, like, to get myself back out there again. And once you're on a soap, it's really hard. You just kind of get trapped. So I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
anyway, my career kind of just went
Yeah,
that way.
that's it. And I've had a couple of things like that happen to me. I mean, if I would have gotten everything that I thought I had, my
Yeah.
IMDb page would be a lot longer right now.
Yes, absolutely.
It's just, and the thing is too, and this also comes down to professionalism as well. You don't say to somebody, "Hey, are you available next Tuesday for your wardrobe fitting?" You
Right,
know,
right,
unless you're serious.
right. Exactly.
You don't say things like that to
Right,
people,
exactly.
and
Not, yeah, it's not fair. Yeah,
it's just wrong, and there's been a couple of other things too where
yeah.
I've ended up on the cutting room floor of a couple of things, and I'm just like,
I know.
come
Me
I
too.
was
I
in it,
know.
just tape it back in. It's fine, it'll be great. It'll be,
I know.
but
Actually, one of my favorite commercials I ever did was a Snickers commercial,
Mhm.
and I shot it in Miami. And they fly you first class when you're going that far, first class to Miami. Put me at a beautiful hotel. We shot like hours and hours, and it was the cutest. It was the cutest little setup. It was like this teenage couple. They were out like in their car,
Mhm.
and she thinks he's going to move in for the kiss, so she reaches like in to kiss him, and he's reaching for the Snickers bar, which is in the glove box. So it's like a funny little moment. And
Mhm.
I mean, I thought it was I loved we did the whole commercial. They set it up. I mean, I have it on tape.
Mhm.
I can look at it. It never ran. They went to the no, they put it together, thousands and thousands of dollars, but it just
Mm.
never ever aired. So in
Uh,
that case, I have the commercial, which is great. I would
mhm.
love to have the financial part of it. It would have been
Right.
nice. To-
I know. I look at some of the things that have just fallen through or whatever, and I mean, the cutting room floor stuff, I did get paid for going and
yeah,
filming it,
yeah.
so that wasn't
Yeah, I got paid for filming this too, but it didn't
right.
air, and I was really
Yeah,
like, "Oh, big
exactly.
money!" This was, when they aired, it was really great. You
Right.
pay your rent for a long time.
Yeah, I bet it did. I bet it did.
Mhm.
So you've been through Baltimore Actors Theater. I mean, you've really been through what to me, your experience on the Guiding Light. I mean, that's boot camp right there, pretty
Yeah,
much every day for years.
definitely.
Um, and very, very, very intense working environments. You've dealt with some difficult people. Now, what would you say? Just picture yourself back because you started this when you were, a young teenager, maybe a
Yeah.
tween or right around that age group. If you ran into somebody today who was about to walk into a bat and was planning on this as being their future, what would you say to them?
Well, okay, if they're walking into that or a situation
A
like that.
situation like that,
Okay, okay.
a school that's like that, for a performing arts kind of school with
Yeah,
the intention that and most of the people do it with the intention of moving on to that in college and then professionally as well.
yeah.
Right. So
I,
what would you say to somebody who's
I think I would tell that person to stick with, what makes them love this, you know, this art for them. Like what
Mhm.
makes them love it? Because I think we sell out often,
Mhm.
and you try to put yourself in a category for other people. And it's not that, we all are typecast, right? That's a very real thing. You can't fight your type,
Oh yeah.
but you have to honor who you are and honor, what you really believe in your art, right? You know what I mean? This is your talent. And I think looking back, I was trying to please everybody so much instead of honoring what I knew I could give. You know what I mean? So I would tell someone to hold on to those values for themselves, because it's really easy to fall into the trap of, feeling like you have to be a certain way for other people or look a certain way, criticizing yourself and all that stuff. All those years that I spent really, I think looking at myself harshly, I would take back. So I would hope that someone else wouldn't do that, like for them.
Sure. Well, that's great. That's great idea there,
Yeah.
definitely great. So Nancy, it's been a pleasure really getting a chance to have this, this has been a great conversation, and I've really enjoyed having you on the show here.
I
Is
enjoyed it too. Thank you so much.
is there anything you had mentioned that you're now a yoga studio owner? Is that the right term for it? Because you have like coffee people or baristas
Yeah.
or whatever. Is there
Yeah.
are you a yogi or are you a just
Well,
a
technically, I'm a yogini, but
yogini? Okay.
I allow someone to call me an actor, not just an actress. So you could say yogi. Yeah. It goes
Okay.
both ways, just
Okay.
like an actor. Yeah.
Okay. So you're very into yoga. You have your studio and the students coming in and you're
Yeah.
teaching that.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell anybody where that is? Because we do have listeners in the New York area.
I mean, my studio is in Westchester, so
Okay.
it's called Yoga Love. It's good. It's great. I mean, we love it.
Hmm.
It's good. If you have to be a very certain type of person to like the style of yoga that we teach, because it's very vigorous. It's intense.
Yes, it is.
So sort of like my background, high pressure, intense, and a lot of more like type A type of people are attracted to the style I teach. So explains a lot,
Oh,
right? Yeah.
I tried yoga once, and I was like, "You trying to freaking kill me here? What are you?" I mean, but then, I mean, you look at me too. I mean, I'm not exactly yoga material.
There's a lot of different kinds, and we have a
Oh,
lot
okay.
of guys like you that come to yoga.
Oh,
So
there is. Well, maybe
yeah,
I'll try it again sometime.
yeah, you just
Yep.
got to find the right kind.
Next time we're heading through your area, maybe maybe I'll pop in for a lesson or something, and
Yes,
you can
sounds
kick my ass
good.
around the room and then whip me into shape here. Um,
Absolutely, I can do it.
that's great. That's great. Well, thank you so much again.
Thank
I
you.
think I mean, not only do we have listeners that listen to this show for the entertainment value and to get the stories, we do have a good number of people that do listen to this, stage moms, or if you want to call them
Yeah,
that do listen to this with their, children that are in the arts, that are doing community theater and things like
right,
that.
right.
And they tell me they especially enjoy having people like you coming on and telling the whole experience from the time you were very young through your career until now. So thank you again for just the great stories and being willing to share with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
Absolutely. So, folks, we've had Nancy St. Alban on with us tonight. And again, thank you all. And thank you, Nancy, for joining us tonight. And thank you all for listening. This is Foul Players Radio, and we will see you all next time. Folks, thanks again for tuning into this episode of Foul Players Radio with Nancy St. Alban. She was a great guest, and I really enjoyed telling her story from the time she went to Baltimore Actors Theatre Conservatory all the way through her time at the Guiding Light and her other acting endeavors that she's been in. She's really had some great stories, and I hope you enjoyed them tonight. And also, remember, we want to make sure that we're supporting our guests here on Foul Players Radio. Remember, buying tickets to their shows, buying their books, buying their CDs, t-shirts, whatever you have out there. Support the arts, shop small, and remember that, every little thing that you buy, little thing that you do to support our folks in the arts really goes towards helping them accomplish their dreams. So we appreciate your support. We appreciate you listening to Foul Players Radio. Remember, hit that like and subscribe button and tell a friend and leave a fair review. We'll see you all next time, folks. This is Michael Spedden signing off.